Perfect. Welcome everyone to the open hour. I am your host, Sage Robbins, the SALT Program and Release Manager. I am filling in for Janae today. She's not feeling well. We wish her well. And we're just going to get started with the open hour. Here is my brief agenda, some updates, and talk about SALT-Conf. We are going to do a feature request discussion around packaging. We will talk about the point release, of course, that's delayed, and the silicone release and what's in that, and then we'll go to question and answers. I hoped today to actually bring some SEPs for discussion, but we will not have time with the agenda that we currently have. But I am working on those. In fact, Wayne and I met last week, and we made some good progress on what we're going to do going forward. And I even took a look at most of the SEPs that are out there and need to just devote some time to it, and we'll set aside some time to start doing that. So we'll see some movement on that. And of course, I will try to bring those here to the open hour. And if it gets to be too much, sort of like it did today, then we will break that out into its own meeting. And of course, invite the community to that. I don't know when and where that will be, because I'm kind of hoping it'll fit in this agenda, but today it did not. So general updates. The June virtual meetups, this is the same slide as we had last time since it's still coming up. Wednesday, June 16th, we'll be doing 2 that day, and these will be really great. We hope to see you there. These are on the calendar for the Zoom invite or links. If you have trouble finding those, please let us know. Happy to send those out. Those should be pretty great behind the scenes with the hacks, and then a virtual meetup for config management during the Asia Pacific Japan time zone. Docs working group is canceled today. Derek is actually out, and some of our other regulars who attend that are out today. And so I thought, I'm just going to cancel it. I was going to host it. I do have some things for the next time in 2 weeks. We will meet, and I'll be hosting that as well. We have quite a few things to go over there, and so I'm hoping we'll have a few more people at that one. Then New Hacks podcast will be out today. And of course, tomorrow we'll be doing Twitch Item Cloud, and Salt Air has a new episode every Tuesday. Looking towards SALT-Conf, this will be a virtual event, November 3rd and 4th. And the call for speakers dates have changed just a little bit. I don't have all the details on why, but we did change these dates just a little bit. So it's now June 14th to July 26th. And we really want to hear from the community. We're hoping for this to be a lot of speakers from our community, because we want to hear and highlight from our amazing community and what we're doing with SALT. And that's you guys. That's the people that are here. So hopefully we're getting those, and the call for speaker links and everything. Once we have those, we'll put them here and make sure that those are blasted on all of the other communication platforms so you can hear from you guys. Okay, next up, I want to talk about a feature request that was put in about add auto restart parameters to SALT Minion service. This is an issue that's in the backlog, and let me stop sharing so I can share the issue. And then Bryce, do you want to talk to this just a little bit? Find my menu.
Which issue is it?
It's the, here, let me open it up so you can see. It's this add auto restart parameters to SALT Minion service.
Oh yeah, so it's pretty simple. Those 4 lines right there. Basically, if a SALT Minion crashes for whatever reason, it'll automatically come back. Right now, that the behavior is that if it crashes, it just goes away forever until you reboot or something. Anyways, we talked about it as a core team, and we're concerned about people not expecting that as a different behavior. Anyways, we decided we'd bring it up here and get people's opinions. If the Minion crashes, and also other processes, do we want to add it to like the master, other things like that? Do we want things to automatically restart if something crashes, or do we want to leave it off to prevent additional load or bad things happening? So anyways,
we'd love a restart.
And then also, another question was, if we do restart, do we want to try 3 times and then stop, or try 3 times and then go to the slower pace? And what should those values be, like in detail?
Does system D have some sort of, I don't know if, I don't know system D that well. Does it have it like a exponential back off algorithm for retrying?
So Sage, you want to scroll to the top? So you can see right there, it'll restart on failure after 15 seconds. And if it fails 3 times in a row, it will keep retrying every 300 seconds. So that's kind of the stuff we have to work with. We can tweak those values to whatever we want.
Honestly, I think those values seem reasonable.
Yeah, agreed. That would make a big difference, at least in my installation.
And do we want this only on the Minion or other processes as well?
Does system D know how to tell when you've manually stopped it? So like, for example, say you've stopped master because you want to run it in debug mode or something. So you use system D stop salt dash master.
So the restart on failure is only if it crashes. Like if you stop it, it'll stop. That restart is only if it crashes outside of you doing something with system CTL.
Then I would say put it on everything.
And can't you provide like specific exit codes too, or is it just basically non-zero exit codes?
I haven't looked. There's probably a way to do that. I'm not sure though.
I was gonna say, I forget exactly what it is, but in our case, I'm pretty sure that anything non-zero is is considered a crash or a failure. Yeah. I personally think it's a good idea to have it restart, especially with the system D, because that's kind of what it's for. To monitor your services and make sure that they don't die, and of course with a limit of limiting, so it's not just constantly trying to restart if like something's just completely borked. But yeah.
Would we want the slower interval to be a higher interval? I'm thinking of people with like hundreds of thousands of minions. Restarting every 5 minutes might be a bit much for re-authing to a master or something like that. I'm not sure when the failures would happen, but would we want to back that off to say maybe 10 minutes instead of 5? Or
yeah, I was just going to say, I think we should check, because I'm pretty sure that the failure would have to be it would have to be something pretty bad for the minion to not actually start, because the auth process happens when the minion starts up, but if the minion doesn't crash, it will still just spin there trying to re-auth with the master just built in with salt. So like, I don't think that should be a problem. I guess I guess that's the question, is there a time when salt would spin up, try and auth with the master, and then crash somehow? But I don't think that that's really ever the case, because that would trigger that scenario you're talking about. But I'm pretty sure that if the minion crashes, either it crashed early in the process, right? Like just fails to start up because the config is borked in some way, or it just can't start up, so it'll never make it to the part, or to the phase where it tries to auth, or it will crash somewhere later in the process where it's like running a job or something, and then maybe some underlying library has a seg fault or something weird like that, in which case it's not really like a typical a typical shutdown or case, and so the minion should be able to start up, and then it would be up and running and available again. So I feel like that might be a fine solution, but I don't use salt on the scale that I have thousands of minions, so I don't.
Wayne, would it be possible to just have a config file? I mean, add a config setting to our minions so people can choose to enable it or disable it if they want?
I don't, well, because this is system D, right?
So they could override, they could use a systemd override file to set them back to the original behavior if they didn't like this new behavior.
Yeah,
I
that,
feel like we should have it be the new behavior and people have to enable it just so we don't inconvenience people. But that's just my 2 cents on it.
yeah. I mean, honestly, I think well, to me, the inconvenience is like this, where the salt minion service dies and then just doesn't come back up. And because there are cases where like the service is trying to start up, be in the middle of an install, and so like things are actually just like it's a broken state, but it's only temporarily broken, and 3 or 5 minutes later, or whatever it is, then it would be then it would come back, or then it would be able to start up. So I mean, I feel like if we add this ability and make it easy to disable, I think that would be sufficient enough, because I don't think people are suffering from the problem where the minion fails and it just starts thrashing the the master because it's, you know, it's coming up and failing and coming up and failing.
Would it cause any undue load on the minion itself if it's restarting every 5 minutes, or is 5 minutes enough that would not be significant load?
Yeah, I was gonna say 5 minutes is enough. That's not a very significant load. I mean, the minion, worst case scenario, that they're in a loop where like the minion is flat out broken, right? And it's just never going to start and it's restarting. I mean, it'll add a load spike every 5 minutes, but it takes, you know, maybe 30 seconds or so for a minion to completely start up. So, I mean, you wouldn't, if you had a minion on a server where that was important and the minion's not running, then you probably want to know about that and fix it out of band anyways. But so yeah, for me, I think I have not ever encountered somebody who said, you know what I would like is my minion to just not start.
Right, to never come back up. Yeah, that's true. And then Mark's comment in the chat, will it affect minion upgrades? I just want to interject that really quick.
I don't think so. It would just slide into place as part of an upgrade.
So my 2 concerns is we have to still worry about Windows, but WinTask should cover that. We just got to write our own little system for that. But my other concern is other people might already have their own recovery system set up. And that's why I'm like, there should be some degree of warning with that, because I don't know if there's going to be any conflicts with that side of things.
Yeah, we should definitely throw it in the release notes.
What about in the case where you have startup states defined? How would that affect this?
Yeah, it could cause some extra load if it's running the startup states, failing in the middle, crashing, and then restarting again. That could cause quite a bit of load if you have startup states and the states themselves are causing it to crash.
Yeah, and I would think if you know, if we took that and considered that a possibility, that it might be worth maybe delaying startup states. Hard to tell, I guess.
I guess with some sort of implementation like this, we probably need to take that use case into account and do some sort of POC about how we expect that to work, you know, and how that would function going forward, like either a delay, like you were saying, Cody, or something, because I think that would need some additional sort of walkthrough or a how-to tutorial, whatever we're going to call that, on what that looks like if we make a change like this. Yeah,
Different settings, could we put those inside the Minion configuration?
So it'd have to be read by system, or what do you mean? What would go in the Minion configuration?
Yeah, so either as a custom conf in the minion.d folder or just in the Minion config itself. Is there a way to have Minion configurations to set the, what the examples that you have here are like the restart seconds or restart on failure. So if I want to have some of the, most of my endpoints, attempt to restart, but maybe some for whatever critical reasons, I don't want to have them keep, spamming on retries for whatever reason. Is there a possibility that we could have these settings inside of a salt configuration folder system?
These settings here, or like settings to delay startup states?
Yeah. Settings to delay startup states, and also settings to say whether or not I want to actually have this Minion restart. I cannot imagine a time right now where I would not automatically want it to restart, but in case a client decides, not to have that happen. More important for me definitely would be the timers on restarts.
So the restart part would have to go into the systemd file, since it's systemd itself that's doing that. But the delay on startup states, that would go in the Minion config, I would think.
Bryce, is there any reason why we can't have Salt generate the systemd files in startup if they don't exist, or if there is a configuration change?
So you can have it, you can use Salt to configure the systemd files, but that would be after it's already up. So you'd have to basically restart the service after Salt's already running. But yeah, someone could do that.
it seems like it's worth exploring. And I'm not sure if this should be a SEP or not. We're kind of on the fence about that when we discussed it as a team. But perhaps we don't want it to go into a SEP and die. that's I'm going to try to work on that. I am. So we wanted to make sure that we're talking about it and discussing it. But if it could benefit from sort of a wider audience, then that's probably the place that it needs to go. But we think it fits here. Go ahead.
I was just going to say an approach that I like that I've used or I've seen used in another project, because it feels like we have at least kind of a rough consensus about this is good and we should probably do something, is to just go ahead and put together an implementation, open up a PR, and rather than like merging it when things are passing and immediately approved, just say, we're going to let this percolate for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever time period we feel comfortable with. And then
Sure.
we can blast it out on like chat and, social media and say, hey, if you have an opinion here, come take a look and, and weigh in. Because that, then we just give people that opportunity. Because it's, it's a fairly significant change, I guess, even if it's, it's minor, but has potentially significant impacts like we've discussed today. So, I think that, like you said, we don't want it to die. So by putting together an implementation and saying, hey, if we don't hear any complaints, then we'll go ahead and merge this in after whatever the day cutoff date that we provide. And then that makes it easy for us to just go ahead and hit the merge button if there aren't any problems with it.
I think we would need PRs into both Salt and the Salt Pack Pi 3. So we'd have 2 PRs, I think.
That's fine. We can link those here. So changes in Salt and in, is it
Salt
the
Pack
one that's
Pi
in
3.
Salt Pack 3?
Yeah.
That I
No,
can
it's
link to it in a minute.
Salt-PACK-Pi 3.
5:30. Okay, I'll link to it too.
And this is something that I would definitely test as soon as possible, regardless of any kind of configuration bells and whistles down the road. I think it'd still make a very positive impact for the work that I'm trying to do. And would love to get this.
Okay, I'll come back to that. Great. It's fantastic. I'm gonna go back to sharing what I was sharing before. Switching back and forth and back and forth. I like to make it fun. Okay. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, everyone. So, point release. We have delayed this over and over. We originally delayed this for a process memory leak and could not find a fix for that or what was happening there. So then we found some other things we wanted to also address. And the test suite is a problem. I'm just going to say this and be really, really plain and transparent with everybody. We did not tag on time because our test suite is a problem and we have some problems to fix there. Packaging is taking a usual amount of time, and I will tell you that I did not announce this sooner and should have. I realized yesterday that I had made a mistake there, and it's something I need to overcome, and I'm not totally sure how I'm supposed to know something I don't know until I know it, but I'm going to work on that. I guess I need some help there. So I'm going to work on that release team a little bit better on how I can gain that understanding and make those announcements sooner, because I did not mean to delay this last minute, but I did, and that's a mistake, and I need to correct that behavior. I'm going to work on that. More to come about that and what we're going to do. And then next week is a holiday in the US, and so that's not usually a good time. So I do not have a date for the point release. And during testing, we also found another issue that may need to be fixed. I don't know if that's the case or not. And during that time, we found a fix to the process memory leak, which we originally delayed the release for. So I think that should go in, even though it hasn't yet. And so then we've got to start over with tagging, packaging, and things. So that's why I don't have a date for you. We are working on that, and that is a lot of different things to juggle. And I want to just be really transparent. Instead of saying nothing, I'm just going to lay it all out for you. Here's everything that I've got, and I have not made a decision. Because I think that process memory leak is important enough that we need to get it into this release that we originally delayed it for. And then possibly fix something else that we found very late in testing. Those things are important. Last year, we released 11 times total. That's like way more than we've ever released. And we made it more of a priority to release instead of getting things into the release, that we were hitting dates. So we can go with hitting dates, what we have found and what we've heard from the community, that at times there are critical issues that warrant a delay and that we needed to consider that. In this case, we feel that that's what's happened. We're trying to hear that from the community and adjust as appropriately. But saying all that, I welcome feedback. Would love to hear from people. If you have suggestions, if you want to rant and rave, please do. I will listen. Silence is actually scarier.
Looks like we had some questions in the chat.
Oh, I don't have the chat open. Let me open that. It feels like the problem is overthinked. Operators could alter that behavior if they want to. Oh, I think that's about the other issue. Honestly, if it's supposed to be started within system D, if I give it prominence in the release notes, we could. Yep. Okay, good thing. I'm really
I think
behind
it
on
was just
these.
Andrew's, just at the very end, Andrew was asking if it's the memory leak affects 3002.
Oh, that's a good question.
No, it does not.
Yeah, thank you. And Bryce, the issue for Amazon 2. Yes.
Yeah, so Amazon is now packaging a bunch of Python dependencies, so we don't have to. But it does mean you have to downgrade Python 3 requests as part of updating to 3003.1 in order to use their version, so that there's not a ton of conflicts.
Can't our packaging handle that forced downgrade?
So I could have required less than a certain version, but then when they release a new version in the future, that would break people running that version in the future. So I didn't want to break people after they've already been running it for a long time.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Can I just say that the chat is not persistent? If I change anything, I can't see the chat again. That's a feature of Zoom. Thank you, Zoom, for having this feature.
Yeah, the other good thing is that when you start sharing your screen, it full screens it for everybody else. And at least for me, then my like chat window goes away and I can't find it. So I've got to like unfull screen the
You can change that as a participant in your settings,
yeah.
although I've forgotten how, because I find it super annoying too.
But it's
Thank
also
you,
one of
Sue.
those things that the meeting owner can override, so
Yes,
you
you can.
can't. If it's set, you can't, your setting has no effect.
Not honored. Of course,
Right.
when
I should go change mine because I'm pretty sure I set mine not to do that over many times on Zoom, and I'm not sure what changes it back. But I'm always playing with those settings and breaking things, figuring out what they do.
it's okay. When I first joined today, it didn't show up and I couldn't exit Zoom, so I just had to kill it from the command line, which was cool.
You know, we'll just have more fun with that, right? Thanks, Zoom. All right. Any questions about the point release? As soon as we have a date, which I am hoping to have that today or tomorrow, although it may be as late as next Tuesday after the US holiday, and hopefully not much later than that, we will announce and make sure that that is on a lot of different platforms. And of course, we'll review it here next week and we'll get that out there. I'm not sharing again. I just realized. Let me share. Okay. Next, the Silicon release. These numbers have changed just a little bit, but keeping up with it, 195 issues in the Silicon milestone, and GitHub 43 are unassigned. And we are asking for the community's help. We feel that these 43 that are unassigned have value. We would like to get them in. They are like what in the industry we usually refer to as sort of a stretch goal. And if you would like to take one on and you can self-assign, please do, or open a PR and link it and mention me, Sage the Rage. It's my handle on GitHub, and I will get those labeled and try to help push those through. I'm also looking at dates for Port to Master Jam and Docs Jam. I actually had some dates picked out, and then as we've delayed the point release, I'm taking a look at that again and making sure that I'm not going to lie to people on something that is, a date. But we are targeting for those to happen, and looking forward to those as we look at this point release and are delaying another time. It does make me consider the Silicon release date may need to be moved. And really, with the test suite being a problem, us as a team, as a core team, we are really considering that we need to do another war room on test failures and really clean those up. Something like that could also warrant silicon release being pushed out further so that we could make sure that that test suite is green. I actually wasn't around when we did that war room before. I mean, I was around, but I wasn't involved. And I think it's a good idea. We agree that it's a good idea. Our first priority is this point release that we've already tagged for and need to get out the door. And then I think our second priority is really getting test screen again, and looking at the time frame of that, if it's a week or if it's 2 or something, and looking at those dates again. They're target dates for those release dates, and we want to make sure that we're doing what we can to make sure that we're gaining the most value out of those releases. It was our goal previous to acquisition to be able to release on demand. We got closer to that, and I think that we still can make that a goal, which is fine. I think that we're close on that, but it does not give the community an idea of what our cadence is if we say that our goal is to release on demand. And so those are 2 separate things. I still think that it's worthy to say and valuable to be able to release on demand and have that ability, but that we have a cadence for major releases and how releases are set up for sort of the plan. The plan can change, but the plan is, and the cadence is this. And as we've looked at that with SEP 14, and we changed a lot of what we were doing, we did not change our support model. And when we look at how we're supporting versions going forward, if we release too much, we're painting ourselves into the same corner of supporting many, many branches and versions of SALT. That is not the intent of SEP 14 was to not do that. And so we're doing different behavior and still ending up in the same spot. And so I want to take a very careful look at that and really make a right choice there instead of just repeating history.
For what it's worth, on that topic, I know the discussion has been had in the past to have sort of like an LTS, long-term support release of SALT, where we say we're going to not add any features to this, but we will port all bug fixes to this version for some amount of time, whether that's 6 months, a year, 5 years. I don't know what
3 years.
that number
Sure,
is, but
It's amount of time.
an amount of time, and I know that discussion has come up, and I think that I kind of like that approach personally, just because it does give people who have a longer change cycle the
Sure.
ability to actually plan and know that they can get a both reliable and supported version. Of course, bit of a side note, I think it's kind of hilarious and amusing because certain organizations have like guidelines around upgrades and the only guidelines are literally the version number. So you could you could completely change the entire code base and re-release as long as you didn't change the major version number. Somebody could go ahead and update to that with no problems internally, even though you completely changed everything. And you know, that's one of those things that organizations sometimes do that is a little bit silly. Anyway, yeah, I think Mark's several people in chat are fans of the LTS version.
Yeah, and as we consider that, again, I don't want to do just different behavior and then have the same outcome. So as we were getting into 5 different versions of SALT, you know, 6 with master branch, then we're here we are creeping up on a lot of different versions. Do we need to take a look at that? And Bryce pointed out to me that if we went to an LTS model and we did even a nod, sort of like Ubuntu does, that would only be 4. And is that the right number? Could we even get that lower? I mean, those are just some of the questions I'd like to at least consider, and then really make the right decision going forward. I think what we did in the beginning with SEP 14 is we made some changes to kind of see what we could do. I don't know that we even thought that it was possible for us to release as often as we did in 2020. And certainly at that time of SEP 14, wasn't that in 2018? None of us saw that we were going to be acquired by VMware. So things have changed, right? And so now we have a chance to kind of look back and say, okay, so what did we do here and what did work and what didn't work? Our crystal ball doesn't always work so well. So, you know, hey, let's try something else, but let's try to mitigate some of the problems we know that we've had. So we don't want to get back into supporting 6 different versions at any given time. That's difficult on a team the size, on such a small size. So what does that look like going forward? Got to change the support model a little too, not just the release schedule, right? Yeah. Yeah, that decision would be impacted by modules, maybe make Salt core long lasting, and then external modules wouldn't be within that support model. That's correct. And so as we looked at Salt extensions, yes, and Salt extensions that are in their own repo could be separate and have a separate iteration and cadence for release and fixes outside of the core of Salt now. As we're moving those to those extensions. And I think that is where we're headed with those anyway, whether we do LTS or not. So, but it does make it easier. Start looking at that changes in the way we support and release core Salt. So we're at the point of just general question and answer. I don't have anything else on the agenda and would love to hear from people. We have about 22 minutes. I wanted to leave it open for people for other discussions.
I actually have a quick question to follow on to the LTS and Salt extensions. Has anyone actually built a Salt extension? Because I tried starting on one and even the basic tests, like when I try and do my first commit, the basic tests fail.
So I have worked on it. I'm working on one. It's supposed to be opened soon. We're just working on that within the VMware process, but I can definitely help out with any type of issues there. If you want to bring those to Tuesday's test clinic, I'd be happy to work through that with you, or we can do it asynchronously.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Like I posted, I'm talking like I committed like 10 lines of code, and like it seems like the actual test code that's in the skeleton seems to be broken, or maybe I'm just missing something. But yeah, I can bring that. I can bring that to the test clinic.
Cool. Yeah, we have a few Salt extension repos that we have to keep private until VMware gives us the okay. So we're following that protocol, despite the fact that most of us don't love it. We're gonna follow the rules, but I'm gonna make a grumpy face.
Yeah, I mean, I was curious if anyone in the community had either, because it's actually failing on pre-commit. So,
yeah, I think there are potentially some pre-commit issues in that extension module template. At least I recall having to fix a number of things to get the one I've been working on tested.
So if there's, sorry, I didn't interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead. That was it.
Yeah, I was going to say, if there's issues with the Salt extension template, do we want to put issues in that repo, Pedro, or where would we? Like if we need to fix it.
I would say yes.
Okay.
And actually, that salt extensions template was kind of overfitted to the problem at hand at the time. And now with a little more time, I think we should probably use something like cookie cutter, which gives more options to whoever is trying to create a salt extension. And while doing that, address the problems that the community is finding.
Okay, so I guess the first thing I'll open an issue in that repo. I just didn't know if my experience was unique and I'd done something really stupid, but it seems like out of the box pre-commit on the template is broken.
So pre-commit is so when you create a new extension and you add all of the files that were created, the first time that it tried to commit, it's supposed to fail because it's generating the static requirements, but it's supposed to succeed on the following ones.
And it doesn't. Yeah, no, I saw that in the
Okay.
instructions. Yeah, I saw that in the instructions. No, it's just it's failing pre-commit every time.
Yeah, then yeah, create an issue so that we can see what's up with that. For example, in the salt repo, we had pre-commit started failing because 6 released a new version, and that was in conflict with what we had in our own requirements, which was the previous one. So right now the solution was to upgrade to the newer 6, but I'm thinking on how we can not have that kind of behavior in the future, not be depending on the version of 6, for example. And this time was 6. So yeah, but so far I haven't devoted much time to that. But please do submit an issue to the bug tracker, and we'll see first of all if it's something easy that we can unblock you, and then how we can avoid that in the future.
Sounds good.
Yes, and from the chat, which I have lost again. Let's see, let me find it again. Talk about IRC. Wayne, you're probably the best person to talk about this too.
Yeah, so if if you are a fan of IRC in any way, shape, or form, over the last week, you probably have been aware of and have seen the kerfuffle that's happened with Freenode. There have been many strong feelings happening among the community and many interesting experiences, but to suffice it to say that Freenode has become a rather hostile place for open source projects. And so there's 2 PRs for documentation that I'm aware of. One in the main repo, one in the salt enhancement proposals. There are probably a few others, but basically to strip out any mention of Freenode and replace it with Libera. Looks like the community has rapidly moved, whether they thought they were going to a week ago or not. So it seems like that's Liberia, and I think OFTC is another place where there's some folks hanging out, but Liberia seems to at least be the main location for the salt community on IRC.
And I saw something in the Slack channel about changing the bridge. Is that right?
Yeah, it's been a
Has that been interesting? Mm-hmm.
I haven't been involved with the process, but it seems to have been a bit of a hot mess.
Okay.
So, but yeah, MTech and Imran have been doing a great job with what they've had to deal with there. But yeah, I'll throw a link to those PRs in chat.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
So we should probably improve those and merge them as soon as we can.
Yep. Will do.
Sage, you mentioned issues with the test suite. do you know sort of specifically what the issues are, or is it the case that there's just, you know, more test failures for various reasons, or, you know, basically, yeah, do you sort of know what's going on there, and what would be required to get that sorted out?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different things that are going on. We continually have some timeouts that we're not really sure what's going on, and then there's the constant problem with the MAC tests that we're not sure what's going on with them. Sometimes they fail, sometimes they don't, sometimes they always pass. It's that one. I think Wayne was working on that one as well, and that one seems to be hideous. But then we did move some things to PyTest, and we also still have some things to just continue to move over. That is just a change in how we run the test suite, and so that's expected work to happen as we make changes. And then of course the flaky decorator that's on tests that need to be either completely rewritten or scrapped and rewritten in PyTest. So there's a number of things there to do as we're looking at the test working group getting started next week. I think we meet for the first time on Thursday. It'll be at, I should look before I talk. It's going to be in the morning. Instead of the test clinic, we'll hold the test working group. And that is another place where we can say, hey, here's some things that we know that we need to write tests on for either the ports to master that don't have tests, or we can fix some of the test suite. But doing that war room also helps us to identify exactly what's wrong, because I think there's some overlap too. I had mentioned this in our planning meeting on Friday, that I was just looking at the issues we had written and then going and looking at the test failures, and that there was overlap in like, this failure kind of is this issue, and it's also kind of this other issue. But then there's another test failure that's only this issue that we wrote. So there's some overlap in what needs to be corrected. And I think we do need to just spend some time on what is it that we need to fix exactly, and how can we make this better? You know, do we need to scrap this test, whatever it is, and rewrite it? And we have that opportunity in PyTest to do so. And maybe there's something else. You know, are we running it in the wrong order? Is it exactly the same environment? There's some things that are really work out, and it's numerous. So I think that we need to attack that on a more than one front. So the test working group to have some synchronous and asynchronous work that's happening, and have some real goals set out and expectations of what can be done there, as well as a war room for the core team, and maybe even a test jam with that, maybe. So we could get the community involved. That could happen too. And of course, that ports to master jam was going to be focused solely on the ports to master, getting tests on what was left in those, and looking at the tests there. I think we probably need to do a war room soon, just in the state of the test suite today, that it'll fail on certain things one day and then not on others, that we really need to figure out what's wrong, to your point, Barney.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, and Wayne or Gareth or Pedro, you guys have anything to say about that? Please do. You can also say Sage is completely wrong.
I was going to say ditto.
Yeah, pretty much. If you're interested in tests and making tests better, definitely come to the test working group on Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say we definitely do not want to fall back into the trap that we were in before, where we were. I mean, right now we are unfortunately
Hovering.
I was going to say yes, but I was going to say merging things that we know are valid once we have 3 members of the core team approving them, even if tests are failing. We definitely do not want to get back into a state where we want to get out of that pattern, and get back to only merging things when tests are passing, because where we were before we went and dedicated basically several months to getting the test suite green, was a big mess, and we don't want to go back there. So getting the test suite in a sane state where it's consistently green across the board is definitely the ideal place to be.
Mhm. And there's even some things beyond that that I would like to do. They're sort of pie in the sky with testing. I won't mention them here because we're just not there, but I want to also take a look at how we can make some improvements to be more efficient and to test smarter. I think that we're still catching up to that a little bit. But if we keep that in mind as we're fixing tests, I think we could also get there, at least initially. And that may need some more expertise in testing. Don't know who that is today. Maybe it's a community member. I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe it's Wayne. I don't know. Maybe it's Pedro. It's not Sage. I'll just tell you that.
So many options.
So many options. But I think that we could do just a better job there. But we need to eat the elephant, as they say, right? We need to take that first bite and then make progress towards it instead of going, well, I took the first bite. It's like, well, then you need to take the second and the third and get that whole thing done. And throughout that, look back and see if you're going in the right direction. You know, that needs to happen with us. And so currently we know that we need to focus there, and we're going to put that together. I'll have more details about that, I believe, next week. And we can go over some more details, I hope. Although it may just be, yep, we're going to do War Room and here are the dates so that we know what it is. And then what comes out of that War Room, I hope to have an artifact so that we can at least summarize what we found and what we fixed. Any other questions? Any jokes? No jokes? I don't have a joke either. I didn't come prepared with a joke, Wayne. What's wrong with me?
Oh man.
Wayne.
There was a series of jokes that I came across recently. Wonder if I can still find them, because it was very good.
I love a good joke. You know, Father's Day is coming up, and that means funny shirts in my house anyway. I don't know if other people's have. It's like a time for funny shirts that are all dad jokes.
So I guess this is a great one and relevant. When does a joke become a dad joke? When it becomes apparent.
Yay. Well, that was a good one. Love a good pun. We just love a good pun.
So good.
I love it. Well, thank you everybody for being here. I hope everyone has a happy Thursday, and I hope that this has been valuable for everybody. I know it is for us, and I think that we really enjoy this time every week. We continually want to hear from you and continue this wonderful relationship that we have each week, where we get to talk about all these things and tell a few jokes. Makes my life good. So I hope everybody has a good weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.